Ok, ahora vamos a leer La Bella Durmiente. Sleeping Beauty. In a faraway land, a beautiful little princess was once born. To mark the happy occasion, the king and queen organized a great celebration to which they invited the three good fairies of the kingdom, who were named the girls' godmothers. The queen gave each of them a little chest crafted of gold and diamonds, and to express their gratitude to three fairies, each gave the little princess an extraordinary blessing. The first fairy said, "You shall be the most beautiful of all the princesses that ever were." The second announced, "You shall have the sweetest voice imaginable." And the third declared, "You shall be the most charming and cheerful little girl in the world." But suddenly, the gaiety of the magic moment was shattered when an ugly and wicked fairy burst into the castle hall. Furious at not having been invited to the festivities, the evil fairy placed a terrible curse upon the little princess. "When you turn 15, you shall prick your finger on a needle, and you shall die." And upon pronouncing those terrible words, the awful fairy disappeared, enveloped in cloud of smoke as black as her soul. "Oh, what a sad fate, poor daughter of mine," the queen wailed. "Take heart, your majesties," said one of the good fairies. "If you allow me, I shall seek to undo the spell." The fairy then approached the little crib in which the girl slept and, waving her magic wand over her, uttered as long a spell. When she had finally finished, we addressed the king and queen in a sweet voice, telling them, "Your majesties, I have not been able to entirely break the wily fairy's curse. Your daughter will prick her finger on a needle, but she will not die. Instead, she will fall into a long and deep sleep to last 100 years, from which a dashing prince shall awaken her." The king, very frightened, immediately ordered that all the needles in the kingdom be burned. Not one needle was to be spared. Nobody would ever sew again in that realm. Dozens of criers were sent to every corner of the land to read the king's proclamation. There was not one city, town, or village, no matter how remote or secluded, which did not receive a visit from those royal messengers. And once the heralds had completed their mission, the king, very satisfied, said to the queen, "Now you have nothing to fear, my beloved wife. All the needles in the land have been burned. Our daughter shall never prick her finger, no one, on one, and shall live happily ever after." 15 years passed without incident. The little princess grew to become a beautiful young girl. Her eyes were as blue as the sea, and her long blonde hair shone like gold. And just as the three fairies, her godmothers, had foretold, she possessed strange and extraordinary powers. Her voice was sweet as one what of a nightingale, and she was so kind to her family and everyone else what she won over the hearts of all the people throughout the kingdom. Long live the princess! Long live the princess! They would exclaim when they saw her pass by with her entourage of maids of and ladies in waiting. But on her 15th birthday, the princess received a strange visit. A charming old lady came into her room and said to the girl, "Your Highness, I know what today is your birthday and I would like to give you a gift. But you must come with me to a certain place for me to do so." The old lady led the princess up to the highest tower in the castle, where there was a little loft which everyone thought was empty, and in that room was a seamstress sewing with a needle and thread. What woman had never heard the king's order? The young princess was intrigued by the seamstress' work, for she had never seen anyone sewing before. "That looks like fun!" the princess exclaimed, approached the seamstress. "Can you show me how you do it?" The seamstress, who was very obliging, let the princess have a needle, but the moment she took hold of it she pricked her finger and collapsed to the floor, falling into a deep sleep. Poor princess, the terrible prophecy of the evil fairy had come to pass. "Ha, ha, ha!" A terrible cackle resounded throughout the tower. The woman who the princess had taken for a kind old lady was in fact the wicked fairy. The king and queen were beside themselves, for the good fairy had told them that their daughter would not awake for 100 years. With a heavy heart, the king ordered what his daughter to take into the finest room in the castle. The royal page laid her down in luxurious bed of silver and sapphires, where she was to lie in a deep sleep until the spell had passed. Each night the queen went to watch over her beloved daughter. "My poor daughter," her heartbroken mother would whisper between sobs. One day the good fairy paid a surprise visit to the royal castle. "Your Majesties, I had an idea," she said to the king and queen. "So that your daughter will not be alone in her long slumber, I shall cast a spell so that the inhabitants of the castle shall sleep too for 100 years, and awaken when the princess opens her eyes." And just like that, the good fairy waved her magic wand, and in an instant all the people of the castle fell fast asleep. Time stood still in the castle. The hands on the clock stopped turning, and the whole place fell utterly silent. Little by little, vines and plants began to envelop the castle, and a thick forest grew up all around it. The ivy crept up the walls, covering the doors and windows, and thousands of wildflowers farmed and beautiful garden where nothing but songbirds could be heard. Meanwhile, we castle inhabitants dreamed what a prince found sleeping beauty and woke her with a sweet kiss. 100 years had passed when one day a young and dashing prince hunting a boar passed by there. Fleeing his pursuer, the animal darted into a dense forest. Dismounting from his beautiful white steed, the prince drew his sword. Haking his way through the brush, he went in search of a bear. Suddenly, open pulling back a large plant with his powerful arm, he spotted the enormous castle concealed behind trees and overgrown with shrubs, and he marched towards it with determined strides. What surprise was in store for the young man when he entered the castle? On the stairs, in the courtyard, in the hallways, everyone was asleep. This is strange. It seems to be some kind of spell, he thought to himself. Drawn by a strange intuition, he went up a staircase leading to one of the castle's finest chambers. What he found there left him dumbstruck. A beautiful young girl, peacefully sleeping in a beautiful bed of silver and sapphires. The prince gazed at her lovely face, obeying an impulse from his heart. He then took the young girl's hand and gave her a tender kiss. The pretty princess, when awoke from a long slumber, the prince's kiss had broken the evil fairy's curse. At the same moment, all the people in the castle suddenly woke up too, just as the good fairy had foretold. The king and queen ran to embrace their daughter, while the page servants, guards, and cooks danced and sang in jubilation. The clocks, which had been stopped for a century, began to tick again, and the dense forest, which had hidden the castle for so long, disappeared into thin air. The entire castle had awoken from its terrible nightmare. The next day, bells across the kingdom rang to announce the prince and princess's wedding, and so it was that after having slept for 100 years, the young and sweet princess lived happily ever after with the dashing prince who had awoken her. The end. Goodbye.